So do you foresee blockchain becoming more mainstream when it comes to loyalty?
I think we'll see blockchain become more mainstream just in general. So people will become more familiar with it. They'll start to understand what it is. I think cryptocurrency will, take hold at some point, and I think that's when you'll see a huge use of it in loyalty.
Hello, and welcome to Martechvibe Dialogues, where we speak with domain experts and thought leaders. And today we have Brad Macdonald, who's the Vice President Loyalty Consulting at Epsilon. Welcome to the show, Brad. So my first question is, what new age technological integrations are driving loyalty across industries?
Yeah, there's a few things that I'm excited about. So one of them is actually facial recognition technology, which you're starting to see it in being integrated into the retail environment with like the Amazon Go and some other concept stores. And I think there's huge potential for that in loyalty. I worked for Delta Airlines years ago, and we had this idea of giving our high-value customers bag tags with RFIDs in them so that when they showed up at the airport, we could greet them and we could start the dialogue. It didn't work out, but I think there's huge potential with facial recognition because it allows us to recognize the customer earlier on. So in a typical like retail interaction, it's almost like you don't get to know who the customer is till they're walking out the door because you can't identify them until they check out. And so, I think there's some cool things that we can do with facial recognition to identify them as soon as they walk in the door and create, a better experience for them. Another thing that I'm also excited about is actually data, which I know that's not a new age technology, but we've made a lot of progress in the last few years as marketers in using data in a very efficient way and in a way that personalizes the experiences, makes it more memorable. And so, Epsilon has invested a lot in data and our ability to identify customers and create kind of that data map of the customer in both their online and their offline experience. And it's allowing us to do some really cool things that we weren't able to do before. So I know, like I said, I know that's not new age, cutting edge technology, but we're doing it in a way that's really cool. And I'm excited about how we can use that with loyalty. And then I think the third thing that I would say is we're starting to see the emergence of blockchain technologies within loyalty. So using cryptocurrencies and NFTs and other things to add to the loyalty experience.
All right, I want to dig deeper on the blockchain aspect. So how does increasing use of blockchain impact loyalty programs? Tell us more about that. Give us examples.
Yeah, so blockchain is something that, I was at a loyalty conference 5 or 6 years ago, and everybody was talking about blockchain this and blockchain that, and we had to be ready for blockchain. And at the time, I didn't know what the use cases were for blockchain. I couldn't see how we would possibly use it in loyalty. And I don't know that anybody there could either, but it was kind of the buzzword at the time. But fast forward 5 years later, and now we're finally starting to see applications for it that make sense. And we're starting to see it being used in loyalty programs. There's a few out there that have started to adopt it. The biggest one that we see is as a reward. So using cryptocurrency as a reward for a loyalty transaction, trading in points for currency. The other one is NFTs, which is pretty cool, which is non-fungible tokens, but using digital art and one-of-a-kind kind of rewards that are starting to become rewards for loyalty. So we're starting to actually see some of that take place. There are other use cases for blockchain. So it could be used to help with the accounting and loyalty, especially when you have like a distributed ledger across different companies or in a consortium or a kind of a multi-brand loyalty program. So it could have application there, but the biggest one that we're seeing now is with rewards for loyalty. And so I think we'll just see that grow even more.
So do you foresee blockchain becoming more mainstream when it comes to loyalty?
I think we'll see blockchain become more mainstream just in general. So people will become more familiar with it. They'll start to understand what it is. I think cryptocurrency will, take hold at some point, and I think that's when you'll see a huge use of it in loyalty. Right now, everybody wants to do it because it's kind of the shiny new thing. But I think once it becomes even more mainstream, it'll become more used in loyalty. I think we're kind of at the beginning of the adoption curve on that one.
All right, you did talk about data, and we've been talking about loyalty, but let's also discuss about customer privacy. So what are the kind of challenges loyalty programs have when it comes to customer privacy, and how do you see them overcome that?
Yeah, so this is an interesting one because loyalty is all about building a lasting relationship with the customer. And to build that connection, to build that trust, you can't misuse the customer's data. They entrust us with it, and we have to use it in a responsible way. And so as marketers, it's in our best interest, actually, to be very careful with customers' data. So regardless of the laws and the regulations, it's something we should be doing in the first place if we want to build that long-term relationship built on trust with the customer. And so having said that, it is kind of it's a speed bump for us, right? So there's a lot of things that we've had to do to comply with GDPR. So we've had to adjust a lot of our customers' systems and their loyalty platforms to accommodate customer requests when they want to have their data removed or when they want to see how it's being used. We've also had situations where countries are changing their policies so that the customer data that's generated there has to stay there in the country, and which, as in a cloud environment, that becomes pretty tricky. But there's ways to work around it. And so, like I said, they're speed bumps. They're not stopping us from doing what we want to do. And I think if we use the data the right way, which we should have been doing all along, these technical speed bumps, like I said, they'll slow us down a little bit, but we'll still be able to do what we want. So as we use the data in a responsible way, the customer sees that, they're willing to give us more data, and we use it in a way that benefits them and adds value to their relationship with us. They're willing to give us even more and give us more permission to use it. So, that's what we should have been doing all along.
True. So you would say that's more of value-driven exchange of data, where the consumers do expect a value coming out of the data that you're collecting from them.
Absolutely, yeah. So, we don't want to collect data unless we're going to use it. And so, we've seen some programs that have been collecting data that they just sit on it and they never use it. And, I think the customer has the expectation that if I'm going to give this to you, do something with it to make my life better. And so, that's our view, is that, let's not collect it unless we're going to use it. And when we do, let's use it in a responsible way that's going to add value to the relationship.
So elaborate that a bit, because I've heard this before where companies are sitting on tons of data and they don't use it. I know there's no single answer to that, but why do you think that happens? Is it a technology issue? Is it a strategy issue? Or is it that they just don't care?
Well, I think you have to differentiate between first-party data and all the other data collected, because I'm not saying it's a bad thing to collect lots and lots of data. We as a company collect lots and lots of data, but when you're explicitly asking a customer for their first-party data or zero-party data, I think you have to show them or be able to communicate to them the value they're going to get out of giving that to you. And in the end of the day, it does become a technological problem, and also a staffing problem is what we see, is that, we've got clients that are sitting on mountains of data, but they don't know how to use it, or they don't have the bandwidth to use it, or they don't have the infrastructure set up to use it to benefit the customer. And so it just sits there.
Is it also because they don't see the value, or that's always a given, that they do see the value, but they have these restrictions or challenges?
I think most customers or most clients of ours can see the value in using it, and they, when we sit in brainstorming sessions with them and talk about what could we do with this data, there's no shortage of ideas of unique things you could do to benefit the customer. Usually what we see is that their analytics team is so swamped that they don't have time to churn through that data and find the insights that they need. Or the marketing team is so swamped with just getting the next promotion out that they can't do the cool, fancy things they want to do with personalization. And so I think it really comes down to, it's a combination of tools and technology and people. So having that sort of efficient environment when you can start to use that is essential. And I think that's probably the biggest restriction that we see that's keeping customers from using it.
I completely agree, and thank you so much for your insights, and thank you so much for watching us.